Daniel McCarthy. I'm the editor of Modern Age. I'm a conservative Republican.
My name is Danielle Moody, and I am the host of the podcast Woke AF Daily.
I'm Yasha Monk. I'm an associate professor of political science at Johns Hopkins University.
The mute button might frustrate Donald Trump, but it's also going to tempt Joe Biden to ramble.
Having a mute button is necessary, given the fact that in the first debate, Donald Trump interrupted Joe Biden 128 times.
What do I think about the mute button? Thank God the moderator will be able to make sure that there's an actual exchange of ideas.
In this debate, both candidates have a negative objective. Joe Biden wants to avoid making any news, and Donald Trump wants to avoid being put on the defensive.
Joe Biden is the stable choice and the best choice in order to dig us out of the ditch that the Trump administration has put this country in.
Donald Trump has to use his last opportunity to catch up to Joe Biden.
All right, so let's bring in our U.S. political panel. Daniel McCarthy, Danielle Moody, Yasha Monk. So the last debate. Daniel McCarthy, can you start for us by writing tomorrow's headline about this debate?
Trump comeback. You know, Donald Trump did a much better job this evening than he did in the first debate. He was, sort of moderating between Mike Pence's rather easygoing attitude in the vice presidential debate and his own very combative approach to the first debate. And I think that works for him. I think Donald Trump is most effective when he combines firmness with a certain respect for the rules.
So Danielle Moody, I don't think you can deny that Trump was certainly much calmer tonight. What does your headline look like?
I don't know, Adrienne, when the barometer is the floor, the only place that you can go is up. My headline is 220,000 Americans dead, but at least it's not 2 million, so we should celebrate.
Okay. So Yasha, everyone was talking about the mute button beforehand. It doesn't sound like it was as perhaps a big a deal, just that, the thought of it seemed to do enough to sort of alter the tone. But how well served do you think American voters were by this tonight, Yasha?
Well, certainly much, much better served than by the debate 3 weeks ago. I agree with Danielle that the standard we're starting off with is very, very low, and certainly the debate 3 weeks ago set an incredibly low standard. So today we got real exchanges of opinions. I think Americans got a real sense of where the different candidates stand. There was still, in my mind, a lot of lies being told by Donald Trump, and we shouldn't completely forget about that either. But I think people actually got to see the candidates debate about topics at a relatively in-depth level. Now, I don't think that will have changed many people's minds because both candidates effectively avoided being attacked in a really harmful way. And so this is probably a draw, and a draw at this stage of a race is a win for Joe Biden because it is Donald Trump who really needs to change the dynamic of a race.
So it's interesting that you say that both candidates avoided being attacked. So maybe the attacks didn't land, but they were certainly launched. We have one moment here where Trump went after Biden. Let's have a listen.
If this stuff is true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
Right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Hey, President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race.
Okay, Daniel McCarthy, how effective do you think as a Republican it was going after Joe Biden like that, relatively personally?
I think Donald Trump has been quite effective in going after Joe Biden. First of all, for the division between Biden and his party, that Joe Biden has a record that is rather different from where his party wants to go in the future. That's true on crime. It's true on foreign policy, where Biden was a supporter of the Iraq War. And it's true also when it comes to Biden's support for very tough on crime measures that put a lot of Americans in jail.
Yasha, were you expecting something different from the president on this?
No, I think I expected him to be running about the attacks he is. I think one of the interesting elements of it, though, was that the president seems to be too online. I mean, again and again in these debates, he was referring by shorthand to various accusations and various supposed scandals that people who are on Twitter all day long or people who watch Fox News all day long will instantly understand, but where I think many Americans will simply be puzzled by exactly what he was referring to. And that's one of the reasons why I don't think that Donald Trump managed to make those attacks stick.
So Danielle, you know, this is the first time the president is debating since being hospitalized with COVID. It was kind of an interesting moment. Let's hear him talking about his own experience.
This is dangerous, and you catch it. And, you know, I caught it. I learned a lot. Great doctors, great hospitals. And now I recovered. 99.9% of young people recover. 99% of people recover.
Danielle, how did the president having COVID change the conversation for both of them tonight?
I mean, it shows his complete and total negligence for the guidelines that the CDC put in together, for the guidelines that the World Health Organization put in together. Look, we shouldn't all need to get COVID-19, right? And then be able to be cared for on the dime of the American people. Donald Trump received the best care of any person in the entire United States of America. But if you are a person that does not have health care, right, or your health care is not that good, or maybe your health care was just ended because you lost your job, you weren't going to get all of those experimental therapies that Donald Trump did on our dime in the United States. So the idea that he's going to lecture the American people and say to us that he's thankful for God for having given him COVID, right, when there are 220,000 Americans that are dead that didn't have a choice about whether or not they were going to leave their homes because they were considered essential workers. I think it is a disgrace. It is a disgrace, and he is an embarrassment. And that entire conversation that we had with regard to COVID and his response to it, given the Woodward tapes, given the fact that Donald Trump knew how dangerous COVID-19 was, but at the same time that he's receiving intel, decided to tell the American people it was a hoax for months, is an abomination, an abomination.
Daniel, I can only imagine as a Republican that you see the act of the president getting COVID and then recovering it quite differently.
Well, he showed that you can get COVID, and if you overcome it, you can return to work, you can return to normal, you can be more effective than ever, as Donald Trump is right now. You know, I think the big lie of this whole campaign has actually been this media narrative that the president is personally responsible for COVID-19, which is a disease, and for all of the deaths that it has caused. The U.S. death toll is very comparable to that of the European Union. You have U.S. states that are run by Democrats where you have the highest death tolls in the United States, and yet Donald Trump is the one who gets fingered by the media as being fully responsible for all the deaths. It's a complete lie.
Because he's the president of the United States.
Yeah,
no, in the States. Look, I mean, look, you have California.
Perhaps we need a mute button in our debate, too.
California has a slightly larger population than Canada's. California has many more deaths because of Gavin Newsom being the governor of that state.
Okay, so we're not going to litigate this here at all. But Yasha, you know, the way it dominates this conversation, is that a reflection of how it dominated the debate, or is that not quite how it went?
Well, certainly the debate started on that topic, and it kept coming up again and again because it is the most important issue facing the United States. And I think there's two things about that. The first is that, you know, when you compare Canada and the United States, for example, it clearly shows that there are countries that can deal with this coronavirus relatively better and relatively worse. And that perhaps does have something to do with the leadership of the United States. But the second point is that whatever the truth of that debate is, when as the incumbent, you are stuck saying, okay, things are really bad, but it's not my fault, that is never a particularly good look, and it's always a pretty uphill position to be starting from. So the focus that the debate did have on the coronavirus, I think, will have made it harder for Trump to make up terrain in this debate.
Last question to all of you, very briefly, and Yasha, we'll start with you. What makes you stare at the ceiling at night about this polarized election? And, you know, don't tell me you sleep like babies, because it's 2020 and no one sleeps well. Yasha?
Well, it's very late here in Italy, so I will sleep like a baby after this segment. But I think what really worries me is the extent to which voters, both on the Republican side and the Democratic side, say, if the person on the other side wins, that can only be because the election was fraudulent. And the increasing extent to which a minority of voters on both sides say, actually, political violence is a decent way of achieving our objectives. So I'm hoping for a very clear political result on November the 3rd, for no contestation of the result, and hopefully for a peaceful acceptance of that result.
Okay, apologies for this. We need one sentence from each of you. We're running out of time. Danielle?
I just want everybody's vote to be counted, and that's what keeps me up at night.
Okay, and Daniel?
I sleep soundly because I know American politics has always been contentious all the way back to 1800 with John Adams versus Thomas Jefferson.
All right. You are all wonderful. Daniel McCarthy, Danielle Moody, and Yasha Mosh.